China bans Australian wheat. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from the South China Morning Post discussing, well, China's latest ban on Australia, wheat. Now, before we go through this, I'll just jump over here and we'll look at some previous videos I did. 3 weeks ago, China bans Aussie coal. Then 2 weeks ago, China bans Aussie cotton. Then, China confirms the coal ban. Then it was our beef ban and other products. I'm starting to get quite the series of China bans videos. You can have a look at them all at your leisure. But this is, well, there seems to be a pattern here. Now, so they're saying here, 400 million US Australian wheat imports. Now let's jump over and let's have a look. Our relationship to China is quite a complex one. They're an important part of our economy. They are a huge export partner. They're our #1 destination for our exports. So wheat, if we scroll down here, we can see it's about 1.3% of our economy at 3.23 billion. Now, I've highlighted it because this will show you where our wheat is actually being exported to. And you can see China isn't the #1 destination. And, well, since this data was released, this was 142 billion. They've grown, so they're probably up there with Indonesia now with the latest figures. But they're not the only destination for Australian wheat, although it is going to be a big hit on the wheat producers. Now let's look at the Australian Agricultural Census. This is from 2015-16, but it's the latest data I get, and it'll give us at least an understanding of where our wheat is grown in Australia. Now I've got cereal crops, wheat from grain, and you've got, and that's, hang on. Cereal, we've got production. We'll load it up. Wheat from grain. Every time I do this, it just resets. There we go. So New South Wales, 6.8 million. And this is tons. Northern Territory, 2,800. The ACT, 68 tons. Queensland, 1.3 million. South Australia, 3.6. Tasmania, 53,000. Victoria, 1.8 million. And Western Australia is the lead. So not only are Western Australia exporting huge amounts of ore overseas, they're also exporting huge amounts of wheat overseas. So this just shows you that, well, it's going to definitely have an impact spread out a lot over a significant portion of Australia. So it won't be isolated. So a hit from a big wheat destination, hopefully it'll be able to be absorbed a little bit more. But still, these are concerning. It's one thing after another, isn't it? Perhaps we shouldn't have put all our eggs in one basket. It's just the challenges that we face here in Australia, sadly. So let's have a look at this article. It's good coffee. So, wheat exports from Australia are expected to join a list that already contains barley, sugar, red wine, timber, coal, lobster, copper ore, and copper concentrates. Lobster's probably a big deal over in WA. The co-op that pretty much controls lobster farming in WA, it's about 80% of their exports go to China. That industry is in trouble, in significant trouble. The escalation in tensions between China and Australia started after Canberra pushed for an international inquiry into the origins of the pandemic in April. So, China is expected to ban imports of Australian wheat, putting 560 million Australian dollars trade in doubt, with the grain the latest to join a list of new blocks on Australian products, according to industry sources. From Friday, barley, sugar, red wine, timber, coal, lobster, copper ore, and copper concentrates from Australia are expected to be barred from China, even if the goods have been paid for and have arrived at ports. The ban on wheat is likely to follow, although a date has not yet been set, sources say. It is understood that Beijing will communicate the bans to all Chinese state-owned and private traders by Tuesday. Traders who have already been notified said no formal documents were issued, nor were reasons provided. The bans, though, came with a warning that Australian shipments would also be turned away if traders tried to circumvent the restrictions by rerouting shipments via third-party countries, sources added, with Chinese authorities set to pay particular attention to certificates of origin. Chinese importers have been told to obey the rules strictly and suspend all orders for commercial reasons. Well, there you have it, everyone. So they're not happy. They're not happy. What do we expect when we're dealing with an authoritarian regime that doesn't really have a free market, everyone? You know. Chinese importers have been told to obey the rules strictly and suspend all orders for commercial reasons, said a trade source in China familiar with the impending ban, who wished to remain anonymous due to the sensitivity of the issue. Shipments arriving at the port before Friday will be released, but those arriving after will stay at port. It does not matter if it is already in the bonded area. Chinese importers, which have shipments of the first 7 banned goods arriving after Friday, have been told they will have to bear the expense of any uncleared goods. Alongside the new bans that were communicated verbally to some traders on Monday, on Friday, China also suspended imports from grain exporter Emerald Grain and ceased imports of Australian timber from Queensland due to discovery of pests and other contamination. Yeah, sure. That's the reason. Yep, I am quite skeptical of that. I think it's political posturing. It's putting us in our place. This is the problem, everyone. Our nation, in many ways, is highly dependent on China. We can just see here. I mean, I'll refresh this and we'll just look at the number of our exports that go to China just in total. Once this loads up, 35.5%, everyone. You can understand why. We'll bring up this live shipping data we can see here. Well, from a logistics, okay, I'll agree to that. We're a lot closer than other parts of the world. You know, there's an advantage there. Although I doubt it would be that much, to be honest. Traveling from here up to here to here to here, it can't be that much of a difference. There's some really good footage on YouTube of deckhands where they've shared just going on some of these journeys. So Australia's trade with China. You know, what would be interesting? What would I think would be even more concerning? What would have a big... Sure, this will have an impact on our economy. But what about if we scroll further down? What about if they start cutting off our imports? Do you think they'd do that? Because if we look at the OECD, OEC, Observatory of Economic Complexity, and we'll just change this to China. Sure, they're important to us as a destination for our exports. But if we see here, we'll just scroll down once it loads up. You know, I'm sure this has got more to do with their website than my MBN. And I'm just... Where is Australia? We're 2% of their export market. So, 2 billion. You know, United Kingdom is higher. Netherlands is higher than Australia. Where our exports to China is 87 billion. Then think of the impact that would have on the cost of living for the average punter. So, this follows earlier rounds of Chinese trade actions, including anti-dumping duties on Australian barley, beef export suspensions, and new anti-dumping investigations into cheap Australian wine. The escalation in tensions between China and Australia, that has shown no signs of abating after several months, started after Canberra pushed for an international inquiry into the origins of the coronavirus in April without consulting Beijing. Australian wheat exports to China had already faced a threat in September when China Customs said it would increase checks and carry out tests on shipments following the first suspension of barley imports from Australia's largest grain exporter, CBH Group, due to the discovery of pests. Barley is Australia's biggest grain export to China, with Australia's trade to China worth an average of around 1.2 billion a year. Wheat exports to China are lower, with the value of Australian wheat exports to China having fluctuated in the past 3 years. It fell to around 290 million in 17-18, 32 million in 18-19, but according to the ABS, exports in the year to June rose to over 560 million. The ban on wheat would not come as a surprise to some importers and analysts in China who have been on alert in recent months, given China's frantic buying of wheat and other grains, including corn. Despite not being a big wheat importer, China has been accelerating its purchases with stockpiling against shortages. The likely driver, analyst S&P Global Platts said in October. China has already bought large amounts of wheat from France, Canada, and Australia this year, while its wheat commitments with the US are also near a 4-year high, S&P added. China has also been buying from Lithuania, while Russia and Kazakhstan are potential new suppliers, according to the China National Grain and Oils Information Center. Grain at a faster than expected pace in the coming months as the country... Oh, we've already looked at that. There's been a cutoff there. The move to buy more wheat also coincided with its commitment to ramp up its US agricultural purchases as part of the Phase 1 deal agreed between Beijing and Washington in January, according to Bloomberg. China has projected it will raise its annual wheat purchases to 6 million tons from June, up from 4 million a year earlier, and to its highest import levels since 13-14. While the rapid levels of purchases have a lot to do with China's moves to mitigate against shortages, this also sets up wheat as a potential target for a ban given its large stockpile, one analyst said. The same criteria could also be applied to China's copper imports. China has been on a refined copper spree, buying up 3.55 million tons in the first 9 months of the year, exceeding the total for all of last year. Analysts again said not all the purchases were of instant consumption, with some stockpiled. With lobsters, China offered Australian insight into what is to come when over last weekend it seized a West Australian lock lobster shipment for testing in Shanghai, stopping it from clearing customs. While the tests are being completed, a $2 million live lobster shipment is likely to perish in the coming days, as it is stranded in an airport warehouse. Australian Trade Minister Simon Birmingham said on Monday that the lobster shipments were being checked for metal content levels, and that the government and industry groups were seeking further clarification from Beijing. 2 weeks ago, also coal suffered a block when China verbally banned Australian thermal and coking coal imports. So, there you go, everyone. You can see this seems to be an escalating concern for Australian exports. And the rock lobsters, I've done a video on that as well on my channel. And, well, just the dependency of the rock lobster, the lobster sector. I mean, here you go. Seafood industry is laying off staff, the impact on the economy. So when this first came out back in, 9 months ago, when China started locking down their economy and people couldn't go for holidays, it was around Chinese New Year, and then that's when I discovered how significant the lobster industry in Western Australia is impacted or dependent on exports to China. Used to be, when it first started, the first co-op over there, it was a lot of exports to the US, canned lobster for the military. And I mean, that's what happens. The problem is, if you get too dependent on one sector, put all your eggs in one basket, then you're beholden to them. And we're kind of in that way. We've got a biggest trading partner, our biggest trading destination, and probably our biggest source of imports, but we're not that significant to them. Don't ever kid yourself to think that. Our biggest source of international students and a huge source of our tourism, well, there you go. It's going to have an impact on our economy, everyone. But don't worry, I'm sure houses will still fly to the moon with some magical reason. What do you all think, everyone? Are you in the wheat industry? You worried about where it's going to head? How do you think this will affect our farmers and producers? As always, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.